Hello.
Hello. I'm Janet Raftis, Master Energy Healer and Divine Feminine Channel.
That's weird. Okay, I'm Scott Hall, psychic medium and channel.
That's weird too.
Yeah, it was weird how you did yours. Your delivery was so strange.
Hello. So we wanted to talk today about how our healing paths over the course of our lifetimes individually, our individual healing paths, and the wounding of our past relationships plays into our current relationship and how we navigate wounds and triggers within our own relationship and how our healing has supported us as a couple.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'll just be honest, I'm not crazy about the word wound.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you use that a lot because for me, wounds sounds so severe, like it can't heal, even though wounds do heal. But for me, for me, it's more like past pains. But
Yeah.
Wounds.
I know. So where do we want to start? Do you want to start with your particular story?
Sure. So my particular story is my last relationship, or my most longest last relationship, I should say, was involved affairs, and so it's hard for me to say that now even. So that was, needless to say, very painful, and I didn't realize how much pain I was in at the time. We never do.
And the infidelity, we should say the infidelity was on the other person's part.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Yes, so that is true. And that came up in our relationship with, when Janet and I started dating. I was very sensitive about, like, if she would go do something with other guys, and she would take the time to explain the relationship she had with whatever the man was. We're friends, we've been friends for this long, and this is what, we never dated, or we did date once, and this, and it ended, and it was many years ago, and whatever. She would just be completely honest with me and tell me what was going on, and she could have gone the other way. She could have said, well, screw you, I'm not screwing around on you, and how dare you call me out on that or think I'm doing that or whatever. So no, she handled it just wonderfully, and I really do appreciate that, because she just handled me very carefully, because that was it is like a wound, I guess. It's like I had this wound. She's like, here, let me explain what I'm doing, Scott. This is okay. It's gonna be all right, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm being honest with you. And just the fact that how she handled it was so completely different than my past relationship that I was just, it put me in a different spot, and my triggers didn't come up as much. And I was like, okay, I can be okay. I don't have to be home jealous. I can be okay with this. And I was okay with it. But most of it is, I think it's because she was okay with it. So she was okay with giving me this extra little love and care, and wasn't offended and wasn't triggered, and had worked on her own stuff. If you care to talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
she'd worked on her own stuff so that she was able to be fully present for me and recognize, oh, this is one of his triggers. This is a wound for him. So let me take care to explain this to him. And it was just, that's one of my favorite things about the beginning of our relationship, was those moments. I forgot about it until we started talking about doing this. I mean, I don't always think about it, but that gave me such, I don't know, I love you, and I just feel so supported. Yeah.
Thank you. I love you too. So I think a big part of, I did so much healing work before I got to you. And I want you to share a little bit about why don't you do that? Why don't you talk about some of the healing that you did actually before you got to the relationship?
Oh yeah, so my main healing was in the form of 12 steps. I went to Al-Anon, and I had alcoholics and drug addicts in my life, all my life, and and that taught me one thing that 12 steps really teaches you is boundaries. What is yours and what's not yours? What's coming from someone else is not yours. Why own it? And so someone else's behavior is not yours. I can't say I'd fully figured all that out when we met. I had years of 12 steps before we met. I think 7 years or something. So that was really helpful. It was helping me to figure out what was my ex's stuff and what was my stuff in that. So I was involved in that too. I was with someone who was not being faithful, and there was a reason why I was with her, and I had to look at that and examine why, what pattern did that repeat that I was comfortable with. So once again, I grew up learning how to be comfortable in uncomfortableness, because my situation growing up was uncomfortable. So I just put myself in another uncomfortableness. But then I'd come to our relationship, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about something you're doing, and then you explain everything, and I'm like, it was like a nice blanket instead of pain. It was like a nice blanket where you like took the time to like tuck me in.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to hide anything. I wasn't like. And
no,
I think
you're
that was
very
a big
open.
part, right?
Yeah,
so and so with me too, it's interesting because really my history was that I was years ago somebody probably that you would have dated, just like my behavior, right?
Yeah.
Like I was an alcoholic and an addict, and I was not very dependable, and I was hiding a lot of stuff in a lot of my relationships previous to getting sober. So and for me it goes back to the sexual abuse that I experienced and being raped as a teenager. What happened for me was that I was unable to have sex sober. I was unable to experience true intimacy, neither sexual intimacy nor emotional intimacy. And so my relationships were relationships that were comfortable in alcohol and drugs. So I also, dated and married people who had, addiction issues as well. And so there was, we couldn't get, there was no way for us to get close. There was just no way for me in my past partnerships to have that true connection that I've been able to experience since getting sober, and especially with Scott. So for me, I started doing, healing work before I got sober. I was not drinking or drugging when I started my healing journey because Jake had just been born. I was nursing him. I was being a mom, and so I was abstaining, but abstaining is very different than actually recovering. And so I was, but I was in this period where I started doing energy healing work, and I did so much healing work. I did so much self-healing. I did so much healing work with others, and I really, that was what really started everything. And I did a lot, and it was really good. And during that time period, I actually, was able to separate from my ex-husband, and was able to, heal in a lot of ways, but I was still stuck in a lot of ways. And, drinking crept back in, and then when I finally got sober, that was when I was really able to, well, first of all, I came back into my body and was able to look at myself really honestly. And I think that's something, and in full disclosure,
I noticed in you right away, that was the thing, you were able to look at yourself honestly. I recognized that when we first started dating.
Yeah, like it doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that I don't have triggers, and it doesn't mean that I don't have insecurities, and it doesn't mean that I'm not stubborn sometimes, but typically if you say something to me, or if anybody says something to me, I will examine it, and I will look at it, and I will be honest with myself about it. I will say, am I being triggered? What's going on here? What do I need to know about this situation? I'll take time with it. I'll be with it. And so because of that, I'm able to navigate it, I think. But, I don't think that, and I wanted to say, just in full disclosure, that neither of us still go to 12-step meetings, but that I will say that going to a 12-step meeting for me, for several years that I was sober, was really key for me in the honesty. And of course, a lot of you aren't addicts, and a lot of you don't need to go to 12-step meetings, but whatever it is that you can use, if you look at your life and you're like, am I being completely honest with myself, right? It's finding your own transparency tool. And for me, the 12 steps was my first transparency tool. Like really having, when I went through the steps and having to look at my role in everything, like I was really stuck in, I'm a victim. And so I took being a victim into all of my relationships with me, right? It was always the other person that was doing something to me and I was being hurt. And I was the one that, you know, there was some martyrdom in there too. Like, look at poor me. Like, look at what my, you know, boyfriend's doing now. Or look at what my husband's doing now. There was very much that, and it was not honest. It was not a true look at the situation, because yes, my exes did some crazy stuff, and I did too, and I did some stuff I'm not proud of. And so when I got sober and got honest with myself, then I was really able to see that there's always another side and there's always something else going on. And then you and I were able to, when we came together, really navigate that as well with one another.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the things about 12 steps is that you get to hear other people's stories, and you realize that you're not alone with that. And also when I went out into the dating world after years of 12 steps, I knew that other people had similar stories. That everyone had their baggage kind of thing. But when I met you on OkCupid and you had your write-up there, you actually wrote how you felt about yourself, basically. And that was I was like, wow, I've never seen this before. This is weird. Not to mention you did energy healing, so I wanted to find out exactly what that was. But that was a really important part, that you had done that work. That's what brought us together. That you had done the work and I had done my work enough so that we could talk the same language.
Right.
And we had both come. In fact, we had both had the same amount of years in 12 steps. Actually, we'd both gone into 12 steps about the same. We figured like a month away from each other. We'd gone in to go into training.
AA so and Al-Anon.
Working
together.
That's great. As we went through that training, so we were able to. And I don't know if I would have such a strong relationship with someone who didn't experience all that, because our wounds give us experience that we shift from to better ourselves. That we can, or we can just go the opposite way. But for both of us, we shifted from our wounds and learned from our wounds. And if you hadn't been so wounded and gone through all this stuff and gone through the recovery, I don't know if I would have found you as attractive, because that was one of the things, is that you had done that stuff, that you had been there, and I had been there. We knew what that was like. Yeah. Versus, I never dated probably because I just wasn't interested, but there are some people who don't seem to have much trauma in their lives at all. I think they exist. And they're just like, what? Your dad was alcoholic? What did that look like? Wow. I just don't know if I could be attracted to that kind of person, because I need someone that has some sort of experience that I can relate to. Right. And the healing that I can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big part of us, having that mutual understanding, and also having that willingness to be really honest with one another, right? I think that's a big part of it. There's a willingness on both of our parts to really show up for one another.
Yeah, we know it's harmful not to. We know we grow from being open and exposing ourselves to each other. We know it's not good the other way.
And we have, this is something too that has evolved over the course of our relationship. There have been times when one of us has held something back and then come forth and said, I've been holding on to this and we really need to talk about it. What's happened over the course of the 4 years we've been together is that we've gotten better at doing it quicker, right?
You have, yes. Because Janet's usually the one, I'm teasing her, but usually she is the one that her go-to is more, I need to process this, I need to be quiet, I need to go. Or she may not even say that, she may just not talk, if she's having a hard time. Whereas I want to talk everything out now and discuss it. But there are some things I've told you before that I had held back. I had not done, where it's usually when shame is involved. If I'm shaming myself, then those are the things that are hardest to tell you about. But every time I do it.
That's for most people, right? That's what shame is secrecy. That's what shame thrives in secrecy. So if the shame is there, it makes you not want to speak out or bring things into the light.
Yeah, it's like if you're holding secrets from your partner, it can't help. That's a lot of energy. I just look at things from energy standpoint.
And
it's a lot of energy to hold stuff in. It really
is. And it's not even just like, we're not talking about secrets necessarily of like, oh, I did this and I'm not going to tell Scott that I did this thing. It's more like, for us, what it's been, I mean, that's my past relationships, and I think your past relationships too, when people were acting out and there was shame involved and we were keeping secrets. Yeah. For us, it's been more like, I've got an issue with the way that you've been handling this, or the way that you are showing up in this respect is hurting me, right? And some of the fear that's come up around speaking into that, of saying like what you're doing hurts. And I am a processor, and I still process, but I have, as a result of feeling safe with Scott, been able to, get out of my freeze response a lot more quickly and into and through. So I go through a freeze response usually if there's some sort of altercation, and then I have to process the information, see how I feel about it, like feel how I feel about it, and then come back around to Scott. Do you want to look at some of the comments and questions?
Sure, go ahead.
There's a few. So Amanda, transparency tools. Could you do an intuitive workshop on that? That's a good idea, actually.
That's a good idea.
The relationship between transparency and mirrors and relationships, how to navigate and ground perception, how energy supports this process. Yes, it sounds like a really, really good idea, Amanda. Thank you for that. And I think it is, it's having the mirror, because all relationships have mirrors, right? But it is that willingness to allow the mirror to be transparent, right? And to not be triggered by what we're seeing in the mirror. Or if we are triggered by what we see in the mirror, to be able to step back and say, what's more important to me is this relationship than my trigger, right? What's more, and not even the relationship. For me, what's most important to me is that I'm honest with myself. When I'm honest with myself, my relationship with Scott works. Right? Yeah. Because I'm able then to bring that out into the relationship. When I'm not being honest with myself, then that's when things will start to get, a little sticky, and I'll have to look and say okay, wait a minute, where am I out of alignment? What is it that I need to talk about? What do I need to do to come back home to me so that I can be present for him?
Yeah, well. I want to talk about another thing, because the mirror thing reminds me of something else. Not only do we see ourselves, other people, and expect them to act like we act, but we also take our past relationships and superimpose them onto our current relationship. And I've done that before in other things. So she, by handling so carefully my past of having a partner that was having affairs, by her handling of that became a non-issue. But there were other things that I projected, that I thought she was thinking like my ex. And so you got to catch yourself with that. It's hard. You got to really always be examining things. Yeah. But some stuff comes up in dreams for me, and I realize, oh my gosh, I was actually thinking that Janet was that way, and she doesn't think that way even. It's just, but we just do that. We project things. We project ourselves the way we think. The basic thing is that we perceive the world from our own consciousness, and of course, we're handicapped to think that most other consciousness or other consciousnesses think the same way, but and act the same way and react the same way and are triggered by the same. But that's not true. It couldn't be farthest from the truth.
Right, because really the lens of our perception is shaped by our past, right, and the experiences that we've had and the wounds that have been there.
Oh, we need to answer more questions.
Yeah. Okay. So Bailey, she says I love this so much. Yes, hits home. Christy is saying, what a beautiful story, how powerful that you both are sharing. Thank you. I don't deal with any addicts, but the honesty part is helpful, and wounds are something that everyone has.
And then just remember, addiction is a symptom. It is an illness, but it's also, you can look at it as a symptom of some sort of energy struggle going on, some sort of not feeling good. So let's make everything feel more marshmallowy and softer by you taking drugs or whatever.
Yeah, and I think it does. I think so much in relationships comes down to honesty, but ultimately it's that honesty with self, right? Because if you're being honest with yourself, then you'll align in the relationship, because you'll want to feel better. I love having y'all as an example of people who have done the work and continue to do with so much love. Thank you, Bailey.
Thanks, Bailey.
We love you. All right. And then my husband, Christy is saying, my husband came from a very abusive family in every way, and it's not something I know on that level. And what you just said about shaming really just spoke to me about how I can be more present and understanding. Oh, I'm so glad, Christy.
I felt like a shift just happened. Did you feel that? Just reading that, I felt like a shift happened. My dad grew up in a very shameful situation where he had to witness his older but yet sickly brother get beaten by his angry alcoholic mother, and it was so horrible. It was a horrible situation, and my dad, I didn't understand that of my dad. I felt like I wish I had known, even though I was a kid, I couldn't have supported him, but I guess some way I energetically could have supported him, someone knowing that he was that way. That's why he cried at movies that had abuse and stuff like that. So just understanding and just having an understanding of what your significant other went through is really important, and just holding the space for them to heal and being aware that they may not see things the same way you see them.
Well, and this is something too, like with using the example of your father, is like, it's a lot for a child to hold energetic space for a parent, so not necessarily recommending that, but had you known the situation and known about the experience that your dad had, you would have understood your father a lot more, and you would have been able to not take things so personally all the time that were more a product of his wounding, your dad's wounding, than anything else.
That's asking a lot for a child, but still I felt like there was some part of me as a child that felt like I wish I had known that earlier or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done differently, but I think I've noticed it as just a quick aside to being parents instead of being in a relationship, but being a parent and telling your child, hey, I grew up like this and I went through this and this was really hard for me. You're not asking the child to hold adult space for you, but the child will understand you better, and I think it's helped every time I tell my son something that I've been through. Helps him understand me better, and it helps the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's really important, and also builds the trust between parent and child, right? Like, Jake doesn't know all the particulars around my experience, but he knows things that have happened to me. He knows that I was raped. I told him at an appropriate time for him to understand that, and in a way that was appropriate for him to understand it, and it had a lot to do with him coming of age and what happens for teenagers when there's alcohol and drugs around. But it also gave him a chance to understand me and to understand why healing is so important to me, and to understand a little bit of my story as well. And coming back to it is like the transparency, right? It's transparency in our relationships and trying to live as honestly within ourselves as we can.
Yeah.
Christy's saying, I felt bad because I didn't know what to do, but you both have helped me to get an idea. So healing. Thank you. You are so welcome, Christy. I'm really grateful that was helpful for you. Is there anything else that we want to share?
Not that I could think of. We have, we should talk about what we're doing in the future. If you have anyone else has any questions or comments, go ahead and comment. We're just going to talk for a second about the Akashic Ranch.
Yeah, we're going to be at the Akashic Ranch in Kamloops, Canada.
We're going to Canada.
In BC.
Take off.
In June. That's going to be June 4th through 7th, I think. And we're going to be there with Jamie Butler, who some of you may know is an incredible trance channel medium.
And runs the center where we work out of here.
And also Laura Boone, who is a phenomenal intuitive astrologer, and the land up there apparently is off the charts, magical, with like vortexes and portals.
Yeah, I'm going to be channeling Ave in a vortex, which is going to be nuts. I'm getting excited already. I think he's getting excited. I think I'm feeling him. Oh my God, it's going to be nuts.
It's going to be nuts, in the best way nuts.
Yeah, so if you could join us, how do they look that up? They look it up on do we know?
Well, I believe I have a link on my website.
But we can put it in the comments. We'll put a link in the comments on how to sign up for that. The Akashic Ranch trip.
Yes. And then I have a Venus healing activation on Friday, on Valentine's Day. It's going to be a 1 hour activation to help us access more passion, more pleasure in our lives. Working with Venus is
Passion and
super
pleasure.
fun. I know, I'm feeling it already. So I'll put that in my in the comments as well.
And I have a gig. I am playing musically.
Mm-hmm. He does that.
Instead of energetically, I'm playing energetic music at March 8th at the Pullman. And
Here in Atlanta.
Jan's going to be there.
I'll be there.
And so you can have brunch and watch me sing and play.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, thank you all. And I think we're going to do this every few weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Second and fourth Tuesdays?
Is that what we're doing? Every second and fourth, yeah.
I think
Let's
second
go
and
for
fourth Wednesdays
like
every month. So if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about that relates to healing, intuition, spirituality, partnership, feel free to put it in the comments,
Yes.
message us, whatever works best for you. And thank you so much for those of you who tuned in today. For those
Thank
of you
you.
who are tuning in later, thank you. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. We will come back to them.
Yep, we will. Thank you.
Bye.